take you away.
Yeah, let's ask some more questions.
Go. Characters, talk characters.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
I'm going to plug
right,
in
so
my phone.
You
How
said
do you
in
get
the,
into it with do you get into it, Dr. Smith?
You know, with us is that we were talking about this before. Both of us are so similar individually. They're both survivors. They both had to, make it through life pretty much on their own.
Self-invented.
Yeah. And when that happens, you really look out for yourself. So it comes off as selfish, but it's more about, like I said, it's survival. You have no one else to rely on. So then you keep people at a distance. You don't trust everyone. You create a character within a character, let's say, because you wanna protect your true identity. You don't want to seem vulnerable. And they're so similar that they can, detect very similar traits. So they keep each other. They check in on each other all the time. They keep each other at a distance. They're not as free with each other as they could be with other people.
Now, the original series had a lot of conflict between Smith and the rest of the ship. Will that carry over with Don and Smith in this incarnation?
I mean,
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of
they're the con artists of they're the outsiders of the family, and the robot. They're like the ones that are kind of like outside the family, and we bring in kind of what it's been like to be in the world, and away from it in a certain class and a certain struggle,
expectations,
and all that.
And different from the family, at least, we for Don West, he's blue collar. He's the people at the bottom of the Titanic.
But also
dancing to that.
But also the people that they con, and they've been, and the idea that once you start conning, you can't stop,
Sure.
and then
it's
it's a high,
Yeah.
and there's an adrenaline, and one of the things that I loved about the show was this energy that it creates for everyone to just be in this we're on a spaceship that could crash, and we're in new territory, and what is this? So there's this excitement, which I think is a great metaphor for these times, and a great energy to have right now on a TV show, on a Netflix show in people's homes.
Can you tell us if Dr. Smith has some specific or special connection with the robot, or is that giving away too much? Because that was in the original series, right?
Yeah. I will. Yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to love the robot and figure the robot out? So it's. I was really excited when I interviewed. I met them all on Skype, and I was like, do I get to act with the robot? Can I have scenes with the robot? What if, I wanted to do a whole other show with maybe we just have a really mellow show that we shoot on the side with space music, Brian Eno music. We have great sets.
Tea with Dr.
Just a real space, and we were just tinkering around and gardening, or just doing really laid back,
painting in the background.
real chilled out stuff, and just wow, what makes you work,
I was going to say, I'm actually...
ambient TV. I'm serious. I think it would be really fun.
Like the log.
That could be like a webisode.
Yep.
Webisodes, yes.
Web series. I was going to say, I don't know if I'm the only one at this table, but I've seen the first 5.
I have.
Okay. So I was going to ask a question, a little more specific, which is that of your two characters are definitely con artists, but there's this moment where you kind of confront each other, and your character is asking a very specific question. I'm trying not to be spoilery. And I just feel like, did he believe her BS story, or did he think it was complete BS?
I think with like I said, with Dr. Smith, the difference for Don West is that with everybody else, he's never really met anyone that has challenged him like she has. That's what it is. So with other people, he's finessed his way and manipulated his way to get what he wants. She's somebody that truly challenges him. He cannot read her at all. And that's worrisome. And you gotta have your guard up, and you gotta be super careful. And the energy changes with her. He doesn't feel as loose and funny and sarcastic, because he could give away a lot because he sees so much of her in him.
It's fun. It's like that, like Columbo. when we knew that Columbo knew everything that was going on, he knows things that are going on the ship. I know things that are going on. I have my own plan. You don't quite know what that plan is. About the robot, about the ship, about how to gain control, and about I have ideas. Parker is like what Dr. Smith's dreams are and her fantasies and what she could build. The kind of world that she wants to. I have no idea what's gonna come out. I don't. So that was cool. I know I just didn't make much sense there, but. And he does too, and so I think in the first season, you'll see this kind of intelligence, mixed with,
and there's a mystery to both of them, and
that's right.
I feel like the rest of the family, they're dealing with their things, but they're very open about it, and it's very. Our thing is we're so introverted, and we're.
Fractured, from the time spent surviving and what we've seen and how we've had to live, and not everyone's had to live that way. The Robinsons have it,
Can you talk briefly about your guys' process to get into your character's mindset, influences? You talked about her dreams. Mm-hmm. How did you find them?
I watched The Cosmos, I was saying earlier. And there's those great space shows on Netflix. And I watched a lot of Locked Up, the prison show, which I watched almost all of them. People surviving within a system, and what they made inside. Like Dr. Smith is very crafty, and is someone on the edge, and someone who's broken, who finds herself in the Robinson family. In this fantasy of a family that she always wanted to be in, so she's in this fantasy that she also has this other side that she wants to control. She wants to have power. She wants to. So she's a conflicted, interesting person.
It's a pretty big change for Smith because the old Smith didn't want to be with the family, so the Smith wants to be with the Robinsons.
Well, I think it's complicated,
They can be useful.
I think it's complicated, I think people are complicated. I think she's got a lot of different fantasies, The original Dr. Smith was initially a Russian con artist from Russia. So it was a real spy, character that was drawn back then. So this one has that similar kind of makeup. What makes a spy and a con artist?
For me, I have a lot of friends. I would say most of my friends are 9-to-5 workers. They are plumbers, they're builders, they're constructors, and that's what Don West is. And I see a lot of my friends and how they interact and how they do every day. They're every day, and it's survival. It's like, I gotta get my material and I gotta send it there and I gotta worry about that. And people come into your life and you go, okay, cool. But then you gotta keep going. So you don't.
You guys nailed the Robinson family. Everybody, including you.
It's all about casting.
It was perfect. I was very happy.
Some of you also.
So, were you fans of the original, and how do you feel about the original series and the movie?
I wasn't aware of the series when I booked it. My dad was. He grew up watching it. I'm sorry, that sounds so dated. But he loved it. He loved the series, and so we watched a lot. I watched the whole first season, and I kind of watched throughout. And I had seen the movie. However, I didn't know that they were connected because they seem like they're very different things, separate entities. But I loved the family dynamic in the original, and it just made me feel warm feelings, and I loved it. I think our show is very different from that in a lot of ways. I think the family aspect is updated to how the world is now, but I do think that core of love and protecting each other is there.
I want to ask you, without hopefully spoiling anything, your thoughts on your character's obvious PTSD.
Oh.
My thoughts on it?
Tough one.
I mean, it's not something that she's ever been through before, and she's usually has it pretty together, especially out of the kids and the family. And I think it's really beautiful to see how that changes the dynamic between Penny and Judy and how it lets their relationship grow. I think was very important to progress Judy in a way that you can see into her a little bit more, that she's not just this I can do it all, I'm strong, smart type of girl. She also has a real
Vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
There's a thing in action adventure movies where people will go through these sort of life or death experiences, and then the next scene they're just like making jokes and moving on. And one of the things that we wanted to do to make you feel the truth of this family together and these people was to have the experience they went through shake them and make them scared and maybe change how they feel about themselves a little bit. And it seemed like to take the person who was kind of the Katniss Everdeen of the Robinson family, to see what would happen if we pushed her to the absolute limit, and how would she sort of rise up again, and to have that take some time.
I will say one of the things that you'll see as you watch the show is it should feel more like a 10-hour movie than 10 episodes of television. We really approach this as the show continues, it has a very definite beginning, middle, and end with hopefully an amazing climax that you will feel like.
Season.
Yes.
If everybody downloads it, then we get one of those.
But that by the end of this season, you will have had a complete experience. Obviously, there's more story to tell, but there's a definite ending that we're building toward this season.
How did you decide to change the way you made the robot from being the super family friendly to being completely terrifying, massacre-inducing, just that robot is super scary, but I love the relationship between him and Will. How did you where did you...
Well, the story of the robot is the story of season 1 in a lot of ways. And one of the things that we wanted to do when we were trying to update this was to have the robot be an actual character that would change and have an arc as well as the Robinson family. And so the mystery of is the robot good or bad is the story of the season. And there will be an answer, a definitive answer by the end. But we felt that because Robot was a character, it had to have this internal life to it. So that was our thinking.
There's a special sort of wish fulfillment, which I think a lot of people feel for a certain sort of iconic archetypal story. E.T., The Iron Giant, even to a certain extent Terminator 2, How to Train Your Dragon. There's this sort of
Black
Stallion, which we actually quote in the fire tree scene in the pilot, the Black Stallion. And it's this feeling of being a young person, a boy or a girl, and wishing that you had a guardian, somebody really strong who could save you. And it's sort of this wish fulfillment, this fantasy. And one of the things that Will Robinson learns in the season is that having something so powerful and dangerous is actually a huge responsibility. And the weight of the responsibility of being that connected to something that could and has hurt others is in some ways it's the central drama of the season.
So you've mentioned that it's going to be different. Can you talk about what will sort of speak to fans of the original, and what sort of changes you think not will upset them, but might appease them? They might be excited about seeing.
Well, you saw Billy Mooney in the pilot, right? Did you guys notice that? So Billy Mooney in the very end of the pilot, when Dr. Smith, played by Parker Posey, takes the jacket off, that's Will Robinson. And he's going, no, she takes the jacket off. That's Billy Mooney, that's a cameo. So that will, by the way, that's 60% of appeasement right there.
And we're not just trying to appease
no,
the
but
he's
passing the torch. But tonally, what are some of the things that you think original fans will love?
At the end of the pilot, when the robot says "Danger, Will Robinson," that is a moment for the OG fans. I mean, it
Absolutely.
really is. Sorry, go.
There are other Easter eggs which we want to spoil, but for there's some things that will put.
Yes.
That will appeal. Yes, in some. Debbie will appear in Lost in Space. I'm not going to say anything else about it. If you know
Debbie the chicken.
Oh, yeah, I did. I didn't
Yes.
realize it was called Debbie. I didn't make a connection.
Will the robot have an expanded vocabulary in the show?
part of the robots is going to remain a mystery for the season. So the robot's not going to become a chatty Cathy necessarily. So much of the robot, as you see with the show, is communicated by the sort of like the universe of lights in its face. So we realized when we were watching the show that so much was communicated by also the performance of would you like to say the Brian is the robot?
Yeah, I think it's in the credits. I don't know.
The actor who plays the robot gives such a great, almost silent movie performance that we felt like that dialogue of the robot wasn't what was being communicated. That his physical presence said all we needed it to.
I wanted to quickly say for original fans, I think that, and I know that there are some original fans who say that the most important thing about the show to them was feeling like it was a family they wanted to be a part of. And I know I say it all the time, but our goal for making this show was to try to create that sense of wanting to be with these Robinsons and go through what they go through by their side and see them like be flawed and have hard moments and then rise up over those moments. And I think that is something that original fans connected to with the Billy Mooney performance and Jonathan Harris and all those classic actors. And this hopefully will satisfy every single one of them, that in some ways our Robinsons are a lot like the original ones. They're just, what would they look like in 2018?
What were the challenges of sort of updating this? And what does updating it right now? What about our time lent itself to an adaptation now?
It's funny. We've been getting this question a lot. I'm trying to process what it means for me. I think this show actually is more timeless than anything else. For me, I mean, the story of the show is if you use your intelligence, if you are as brave as you can be, and if you stick with the people who are around you, you can overcome anything. That's what the show's about, and that's not about 2018. It could be. I think that's a message for
everybody at all times.
10 years ago, 10 years in the future, we really made this show for everyone in the world. We think, I mean, it's not just that we want to, be a big blockbuster, but we think that the message of Robinsons stick together, which is in the trailer of the show, is why we're making the show. So, I mean, we updated certain things by having a family that has flaws. We have, women who are equal in every respect, including the casting.
It's not
with
even a
the male
question if they are equal. They just
You don't even-
automatically
yeah, it's not
are.
even
It's not a question.
So it's sort of representing like what do we think the world should be now, and certainly should be in 30 years of just people working together. And as you'll find out, there's a whole international cast even beyond the Robinson family, and that's just what we wanted to put out into the world. So
Can I add to that? I think, especially in the time that we're in now, when on the news and social media, every second I turn my phone, there's something else, there's something new, there's something, a tragedy that you witness or see through social media that is absolutely horrendous and horrible, and you think, how is this the world that we're living in? And to have a show like this that people can watch with their whole families, and I hope can feel some semblance of happiness and escapism in the best sort of way, is a gift I hope that people will receive, and I hope that our show represents that.
How do you like WonderCon?
I love WonderCon. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so being at WonderCon is like a dream come true.
Wait for Comic-Con?
Oh yeah. I mean, I went to Hero and Villains Con back in Chicago, but it is nothing compared to this.
So you got to walk around and...
Not yet. I'm doing that after this.
Okay.
I'm gonna like go around to the D&D section. I'm gonna go visit some cool robots.
Okay, so quick, off the top of your head, favorite sci-fi TV shows?
TV show Star Trek. It's a classic.
Nice. Very nice.
You're my favorite.
I like the original TV show.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome too.
My favorite part was when Spock was mind melting with the rock.
Great. Very nice. Proving your sci-fi cred.
So what was it like sort of stepping into a pretty iconic role? Did you feel any sort of responsibility? Or
I have, and I still feel like I have humongous footsteps to fill, humongous shoes to fill. and I'm very lucky that the original Will Robinson, Bill Mooney, has been so gracious to me, and he's been such a good friend to me. In fact, we are going to be having dinner soon, so we bonded over comic books and Pete Seeger. So that has been Captain America.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he's a huge hero of mine. So I'm hoping one day I meet Chris Evans.
You could play young Chris Evans in the movie, probably.
Good, actually.
My question is, in the show, your relationship with your father is kind of a little on the rocks.
Yep.
Because he's been away fighting they're not exactly clear how long. So how was it to kind of play that part of the relationship of you really want your father's approval, but you're kind of mad and resent him a little?
It was kind of like an emotional roller coaster. I got to work with Toby Stephens in a lot of my scenes. He plays John Robinson, and he made acting not quite acting. It was more a conversation, and it was like I had lived with him being my dad for years and years, and him going off to war. It was like that was my reality because he was so good, and it was the way I looked at it. It was like what you said. He went off, and I've missed him for a while. So the baseball is very symbolic of that. So, yeah.
Was there a specific episode during the first season that you felt like really sort of defined who your character was, or was it sort of turning point for your character?
I believe that in the beginning, like the first half of it, it's episode 2, sorry. Episode 2 that really, that sort of set forth who he was going to be, because that's when him and the robot really bond a little bit, more than the first episode. And episode 6, I keep on saying season.
Make it happen. Yes.
Episode 6, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it will make you cry. And episode 10. And episode 10. So those are like the three episodes that I think define Will Robinson as a character.
Okay, does that have to do with his relationship with his father or with the robot?
It has to deal with his relationship between the whole cast and crew, from robot to father to Dr. Smith to sisters to mom to everyone.
Behind the scenes, what were you acting with the robot? What did they have there for you to act with?
Behind the scenes, so when the robot was in his like nice form, he there was a guy there, and they had a robot suit, and that was really awesome because the guy who played the robot I'm still in contact with today. He's a great friend. And when he was in his scary form, it was completely computer generated. There was nothing there, and Parker Posey really helped me with that, because after the first day of the first episode, I called her and I was like, I'm really overwhelmed with all the green screen, Parker. Can you give me a pointer? And she said, I like to imagine what's not there. And that really helped me act off of nothing, basically. And also, back at home, me and my sister play pretend all the time, from like pretend wizards to pretend spaceship pilots. So it wasn't like jumping into a whole new universe of acting off of nothing there.
Can you tell us about the wire work you did? Because in the trailer it looks like Will's going for a little spacewalk at some point.
Yes. When in the trailer, when you see Will floating off at the end, that was all wire. And there was all green screen around me. So they had these green guys in suits, and they would pull me back on this wire, and I would have to pretend like I was floating. And it was really
hysterical to watch.
It was really hard not to laugh.
They're not guys who look good in leotards.
Yeah, they were stunt men in leotards. It was really hard not to laugh.
They're in these green leotards, and they look like they're from Willy Wonka.
They look like Muppets.
Or Oompa Loompas, but big ones.
Yeah, they look like Kermit the Frog.
By the way, some extraordinary things, just to give some, all that stuff of Judy swimming, there was never any water.
What?
No water. No, it was all her, Taylor, on wires in a green screen stage, and all of that water, all that ice, all of that, everything around her was all added in later. And what you really saw was her being thrown from one guy in a leotard to another guy in a leotard, and then even the set was not there. Like, and it was all done after the fact.
I remember after we were done filming, I went to the visual effects office where they were putting touches on everything, and there were a few scenes that they hadn't gotten to yet, and one of them was part of that scene. And I remember, like, she would go from looking swimming in water to being like in a green room with a doorway there. So
yeah, it was amazing. Neil Marshall, who directed the first 2 episodes, really wanted real environments as much as possible. And I have to say, the Jupiter 2 set is extraordinary.
They built
because it's like the exterior doesn't really exist, but the interior is like you think it would fly. They
built the whole cockpit, like so many buttons.
There's even things in the drawers, like you lift things up and there's buttons, and you go, "What was this for?" I mean, but when you see glaciers, there were glaciers. When you see forests, there were forests. I mean, most of what
Deserts.
You see is real, but the occasional times when it's all green screen, it was so beautifully interwoven because you cannot tell.
Can you talk a little bit about what I took to calling the iconic tree burning scene? Your character dug deep and found at least a strain of the beginnings of adulthood, it seemed like to me.
Yep.
And the method by which you acted that was excellent. Can you talk about that for us?
Funny story, we had to reshoot that scene about 5 times because first time we were out in a forest and they built they built a tree in the middle of a forest. And then the second time we were in studios, and then after that we just kept on alternating. But filming that scene was a huge challenge, yet also a huge honor. When filming it, I kind of just had to think about losing it all. And one thing led to another, and then I just started crying.
You did an excellent job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're really good.
Thanks.
So what did you and the cast sort of do to sort of create the realness of the family and sort of the chemistry between you guys?
So I was going to ask, who's your favorite sister?
To build the chemistry between us, we didn't have to try really hard. We all hit it off at the first table read when we first met each other. Me and Mina went to school together on set. Taylor would always stop by at school. Molly's son Will, her real son is named Will? Yes. He would come by the school trailer, and when I was on breaks or I had finished school, we would play Magic the Gathering together. And so our cast hit it off right away. Me and Parker would go to dinner after days of filming, and we really became a close-knit family on screen and off screen.
Welcome to what it's like with Ignacio on the set.
Well,
Zack Estrin.
Oh, that's right. You were
writer, showrunner, person.
Pretty important
Person, producer.
Man of many hats.
Grand Poobah of leisure.
That's fantastic.
Can we get you a plaque?
Yes.
Take a show like Lost in Space that was
Now you need to put that on his headstone.
Yeah.
And update it and make it work for today's audience.
Did you say how hard was it? I think for us, it's hard. I kind of conflate the challenge with also the word gift, because there was this great concept that was waiting to be taken into the present day. For us, it was about how do we take what was so special about that show, the core of it, and be respectful to what that was and what it meant to people, and then create a whole new generation of fans. And to us, that really came back to the idea of what the Robinsons represent, and that is hope, and they are aspirational, and they are good people, and that we are looking at a future that is not, there's a lot of awesome sci-fi that's dystopian and dark and effed up, and we wanted to do something different. That was, I think, what the original one aimed to do as well, which is give you a family that you might want to be a part of, and who are striving for goals that are honorable and just, and a nice tonal goal given where we are today in the world. If I could just dance around that.
Can you talk about how you built the writer's room for this show, keeping in mind those themes, but also keeping in mind sort of the imagination that comes along with this show?
The writer's room is actually is one of my favorite things to talk about because I love all of them so much. It was very important to us, so we have a lot of really strong, great women in this show as characters. One of them sitting next to me, and so we wanted to have our writer's room be predominantly strong, great women. And that's despite the fact that you're looking at Matt and Burk and me, the rest of the writer's room are all awesome women who have amazing voices and different life experiences and different culturally, and we wanted to really bring that into the show. Everyone has a really unique, like when we sat with them and they would have just read the pilot script, we're like, okay, who are you? Who are you drawn to? And interesting hearing them talk about why one of them wanted to be Penny, or like wanted to be Penny but was Judy, or wanted to be this but was that, or like what stories you want to tell. And really been a fantastic development experience with all these writers.
Actually, leading off of that, can you tell us why you decided to take this character?
Yeah, I think from reading the first episode, I immediately fell in love with, first of all, I'm in complete admiration of how true she is to herself and how genuine. She's never fake, she never has a filter. She says what she means, and she follows what she likes and what she doesn't like. But what immediately got me is just the fact that she's very, very relatable to me, and that she's the kind of sarcastic, finds herself funnier than she sometimes actually is. A kind of
you are funny,
place.
Mina. You're a funny person.
Yeah, when you write the stuff that I say.
No. Some of her best lines, when we were just like, okay, this next take, just do some stuff, and then that's
Really?
yeah.
Queen of ad-libbing is good.
Yes.
It's
Yes. That's a ad-libbing or is with permission ad-libbing?
with permission.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. It's just that I was just immediately drawn to how she carries herself and how genuine and true she is.
My question is, I like the way that the story's being told, like through a series of like flashbacks, you get more texture to the characters as they go. And so my question is, in the next group of episodes, are we going to see more of Dr. Smith? Well, I've seen up to 5, so are we going to see more of
Oh my god, I've seen 1 and 2. What is with
Yes,
everybody
it's
else?
so
seeing
cool.
on season 3?
So are we going to see more of Dr.
Yes.
Smith's background to give her...
So you saw episode 3, which has her first big flashback story.
Right.
In the first season, so like as you saw, we aren't doing the Lost thing where every week we do it. We sort of only do it when it's appropriate or reflective. So we don't give. She doesn't get another one in that season. So we give just a little bit of taste of some of the different characters when it feels like it's the right time to do it, or when it can inform something that we're telling in the present. It's not a go-to thing for us, but in stories that we're talking about for future seasons as well, that's when you would get more windows into to people.
So Mina, how will Penny find her role in the family this season?
I think we start with her definitely feeling a little more left out than involved, partially because, she's a literature, humanities buff in this science family, but I think as we get put in worse and worse situations...
It's gonna get worse?
Yeah.
Well, they are lost in space.
We are lost in space.
Yes.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, space is a scary place, but
Yeah.
as wondrous as it is, it can
Yeah.
also be
Yes.
scary.
I just think by the end of the season, where you see that she's a little more comfortable in herself and who she is, she finds her place, and we all find how we can thrive off of each other's differences, that we fit together like a puzzle.
What was the hardest scene? I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, I like how she stepped up.
Yeah. What was the hardest scene for you to do?
Probably, there's one scene that is very, very emotional because something very bad happens to John at one point, or something very bad potentially happens to John and Don West, and I think being in a position that you establish such a connection with not only the characters between themselves, but the people, me and Toby, me and Ignacio, but also me and John and me and Don West, and loving these characters, that as soon as something bad happens, you automatically get this feeling of like you're missing something or something is lost, and I think that's what hit hard.
One of my favorite parts was before the season started, they have us do read-throughs like people would watch it. So they actually have like a binge read-through where we did like 6 episodes straight, like doing the read-throughs like before it started. And so seeing all the cast experience the show the way a viewer is going to, and having never read most of these scripts before. In fact, we had never seen them except for the first one. And so us being able to watch them experience what's happening to their characters live in real time and seeing the actual emotional reactions, and Max crying like when he got to a certain part that you haven't seen yet, and like
was the character crying, or is that what you were called on to do?
No, the actual
Max.
actor reacting to what he was reading that was happening in the thing, and was pretty remarkable experience.
That's how you know you've written epic TV.
That's how, if you can get actors to have emotion, no, I'm kidding.
So
No.
I'd like to ask
It's
we asked someone else this. What was your favorite science fiction movie or television program?
Okay, so I'm going to be, again, all cards on the table. I am not the biggest science fiction buff. I'm definitely more like Penny in that I'll stick to, my Shakespeare. But I grew up with a father who's absolutely, completely obsessed with Blade Runner, and so I'm going to put that as my, if you start talking to him, he will not stop. You will be here all night, even tomorrow. I think that's just what I grew up being, close to somebody who's in such admiration of it, that I would definitely have to say that's my favorite.
And were you one of the people that this was your first con that you've been to?
This is my first con that I've been to in this position. I live in New York, and so I've been to Comic-Con in New York. Yeah, that is, wow, that is a lot to take in. There's a lot of pushing and shoving that happens. I would like to go to San Diego at some point.
Oh, I'm sure you will be, actually.
But no,
on the other side of the stage this time.
When you go to a con, what do you enjoy at the con?
How extreme people go with dressing up.
I saw people watching.
Oh yeah. Just wait for people to start cosplaying you.
My dad and I had an agreement that if we ever went to a con,
That he would
that he would
cosplay you?
play Penny, that
That'd
I'm
be
going to
so
get
good.
out of it. We didn't make it this
Gonna be the
time,
best.
but we'll get there.
Well, then who are you going to cosplay as if he's Penny?
I guess we just have to fight and see which one is the better Penny.
Okay.
Oh, fight it out. What I love about cons is I love people who love what we do. There's so much cynicism and snark in the world that like being around people who genuinely love television and movies with pure abandon is my favorite thing to see, because it's like real reactions. And like, if you've made something that sucks, because the people are like legit with it, right? And and if people like it, yeah, exactly.
Hey, guess what?
You just wasted 2 years of your life, sir. I'm gonna let you know. I just wanted to let you know in case you were feeling okay about things. Y'all, no, it's not so much.
I'm curious, because they're going to wrap us up here. Writing what is essentially a 10-hour feature as opposed to episodic television.
Yes.
What is that experience?
It's so cool because you actually can do like the movie structure, right? So the first 3 episodes are Act 1, and you guys have seen it, right? So you know what happens in the first 3, and then all of a sudden in episode 4 the show opens up. Well, that's Act 2, clearly, right? And it goes on. And so you can beat it out like it's a movie, and then you just break it down into 10 episodes. But it gives you one full experience all the way through to 10, but allows you to write all the scenes that in movies that you wish people had been able to have. You're like, wait, but I want to know more about those 2 characters and what happened to them between that scene. How did they get from there to there? And we have the opportunity to tell a full episode about how they got from there to there, right? And that's a lot of fun. You don't have to. An action sequence that's in a movie is going to take 5 minutes. We can make a whole episode about.
And you do it so well.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
That's great. Thank you all. Thank you so
really, really appreciate it.
What I thought was amazing about, I've seen the first few episodes, and the relationship between your characters when you start the pilot, you think it's one way, and then you're like, wait, why are they snapping at each other so much? What's going on? And I love the fact that it's not the relationship you thought, but that means it has room to grow. And I was just riveted watching. How did you guys play that? How did you guys play that?
Well, I think we spoke early on. We had conversations where both of us agreed that the relationship had to be as kind of real as possible for people to care about the family and for the stakes to be real. I mean, you want them to survive, but most of all, you want whatever is going on to be figured out somehow. And also go, is it going to be figured out? Are they going to be able to patch things up?
And you want it to be romantic, and you want it to have like all those layers and not just be a couple. One of the things that the writers set up was that the romance in the show is between the parents, and if you could set it up at the beginning that you're not together, then you have somewhere to go.
And can they find each other again?
Clearly demonstrated on the show is that Mama Bear is willing to do literally anything for her family.
For sure.
Can you talk about that?
I think
influences for that.
Well, Maureen is a really sort of strong-willed. I mean, they're both A-type personalities, which is clearly been one of the problems in the relationship. Maureen is fiercely independent and absolutely believes that there is an answer to every problem and things can be worked out and solved. And she's also smart, and she also knows that there is no future for her children if they stay on Earth. They won't be able to have children of their own. Clearly the Earth has become close to uninhabitable. And so I think she's desperate. I mean, I think she's fierce, but I think she feels, and she's set up as this aerospace engineer. But so she has access to information about what's going on Earth that the regular lay person doesn't.
That she didn't choose to share with others.
Yeah, and I think she's terrified.
Now, the pilot episode teases that your character made a very dark decision. Will that come back to haunt her this season?
It's likely that it will. If I had to guess, I would say yes. I mean, she has a secret, She clearly has a secret, and she has done something that she shouldn't have done.
And will we meet the
but
other
I would have
person?
done it. Sorry. I think the audience would understand it.
The person on the other end, will we meet them at some point?
We're just gonna have to watch the show. I don't know what to
So
tell
I
you.
wanted to know, because you play the parents, so you really are setting the tone for the rest of the actors that are in your family. So how did you go about making them feel like part of the family or making them feel like a family? Because the other actors had said that you've really done that.
Well, they were really, the kids are fantastic, and they were incredibly easy to work with, and wonderful to hang out with.
Yeah, smart and respectful, and
Yeah, really
grateful,
professional,
to be there.
Very good actors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sort of like you feel really blessed when you work with kids who are all like that, because it can go the other way, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, we were very lucky.
Yeah, and I think that, you also feel, I wanted them to have a good time, and you want them to feel, I care about children, and so it always makes me really heartbroken if, to sometimes be working with children that you feel should be at home or should be in school or...
Or often they almost feel as if they've been forced into this by parents who kind of
wish they were doing it,
and they actually don't really want to be there. But when you're with a bunch of kids who really want to be there and really super excited about it, and they're really lovely and they're really great actors, it just made it quite
also,
easy.
As because they are particularly Max, but there's this willingness to play and to believe, and so there's some pretty ridiculous situations that we get into in this show, which feel a bit silly to act sometimes,
For instance?
Well, I told this story already, but we, quickly, they built the Jupiter. The Jupiter is huge, the set. It's like the size of this room. And they built it so that it would go on an angle because, we crash into so that we could shoot on this angle. But then once it was done and we went to shoot, the DP walked on and just got nauseous immediately because there's no horizon, there's no windows, you can't see out, and so you can't shoot on a... So we instead had to do it's basically I had to act the whole scene as though I was like walking up this, the whole thing's on this angle, and you feel just ridiculous, It's hard to like get the safety net or whatever, but the kids believe in it so 100%. And then you just play, and it's just fun.
Yeah, it's liberating actually working with, because as actors, when you've worked a lot, you become quite cynical about things. You are quite cynical.
You are.
And then you're suddenly, I'm very cynical. It's true. Bitter and cynical. No, but then you're working with these fresh kids and just so everything is amazing and and I go, I've sent to you, I go, God, I feel terrible about myself. They're so positive, and I'm there like moaning about. Well, you see, we're going to go 2 hours over. It's obvious, and then you've got these kids going, yeah, but it's going to be great, and you're like, oh God, wonderful, wonderful.
Max is such a special person, and we wear those spacesuits, and they look great, but they are torture, absolute torture. And the two of us would just be like
bitching and
complaining, oh my back,
and like Max is in his with the helmet on, going, this is awesome, this is amazing.
Can I wear it home?
Yeah. Oh man. To be young again.
He actually was talking about doing a scene with you and said that you made him believe that you've been his father for 10 years.
Oh, that's extremely flattering. It is one of those things where, we have kids, so he's the same age as my son, and I found it very confusing at times, I have to say, because I was saying earlier that I had spent a lot of time filming abroad over the last 4 or 5 years, away from home. I live in London, and I've been in Cape Town, and I've been now in Vancouver, and I've been away from my family on and off for a long time now, and so I can really relate to John and his situation, because I've been away from home and having to go into a family that has been without me for months at a time, and not fitting in and feeling awkward and having to find my way back into that. So I really relate, and so it made it quite easy at times to believe in the situation. And I found myself becoming... Burk was hilarious, one of the writers, because he felt very similar to me at times, although he had only been away from his family for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
And
there were scenes where he'd literally come out of the tent going, like he was like crying because they'd done the scene with Max, because he was relating to it totally as well. He was like, oh my God.
We were all missing our kids.
Yeah, and so I think Max ended up being an avatar for my...
We all wanted to parent.
Last question. Yeah. Can you guys talk about sort of, I feel like different genres have, particularly when you're dealing with families and parenting, they present different challenges because you're in universes that present different challenges. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about, like, what are some of the challenges specifically to being a space parent? That we're going to see.
Right.
We got 2 minutes.
I want to know how they shower. I haven't seen it. A lot of my parenting these days has to do with things like you need to have a shower.
Yeah,
you really
at 11 and a half need to have another shower. It's in a way it doesn't matter where they are. I mean, it does, because what's fun about it is they're having real dynamics amongst extraordinary circumstances, which is part of what makes it fun and funny, and that you can have, like, you know, a regular argument whilst dissecting a space eel or something. But
after he's killed it.
Yeah. I think it's not even so much about space, it's just that these people are like all, you know, they're trying to save their kids from dying every second of the show.
And also, I mean, I think to reiterate what you were saying, basically, you have these domestic little situations that are arguments, whatever, happening in this extraordinary place. You know, they're on a planet billions of miles, and there's all kinds of things trying to kill them. And at the same time, they're behaving like any family would.
It's the first
and I
scene
think
they're playing cards, and the cards are floating.
And they're just talking. It's like they're on a road trip or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's finding those ways of making them like relatable to anybody who's watching. Like parents will hopefully relate to these guys, and then kids will. Yeah, good. And then kids will relate to, you know, the kids that are, you know, and hopefully they won't find our romance too gross. It was like, ew! Mom and Dad kissing. Thank you.
Thank you guys